Do you want to know what the easiest way to learn to fly is? It's not airplanes, and it's definitely not helicopters. It's gliders. And it's not even close. Gliders require less time. The FAA requires that you only have a minimum of 10 hours of flight time in gliders to get your license. 15 to 20 hours is typical, though. You can do that with just 2 to 3 lessons a month over the course of a year. Compare that to airplanes that require 40 hours minimum, but 70 to 80 hours is actually more typical. Most flight instructors and flight schools will recommend 2 to 3 lessons per week, and it'll still take you a year. That extra time costs both the time, obviously, and it also costs a lot of extra money, too. I looked at the logbooks for both my wife and me, and both of us finished our glider license in about 20 hours. She had less aviation experience, and it still took her about the same amount of time. Why? Because a lot of that time flying gliders isn't always on the lesson. Sometimes, if you take off and there's good conditions with updrafts and thermals, you throw out the lesson plan and you decide that you're going to soar with the birds that day. You see how high you can get. See if you can get higher than you've ever gotten before. You can see how long you can stay up. See if you can stay up longer than you've ever stayed up before. Those fun flights take extra time, but I don't regret doing that. It's why I started flying gliders in the first place. Next, there's no medical required to fly gliders. Even if you've lost a medical or been denied one in the past, you can still fly gliders. You hear horror stories of professional pilots who've lost their medical due to some medication that they have to take, or some issue that happened 10, 20, or even 30 years ago that grounds them, maybe permanently. The FAA says, though, that as long as you've determined that you are medically fit to fly, they are not going to get further involved with that and not going to require any further medical exam than that. Use common sense and consult your doctor if you have any questions, but there is no medical certification required to fly gliders. Now, at the end of this video, if you have any further questions, write them down in the comments below and I will respond to them. Or if you want to, you can always schedule a call with me and we can discuss your situation personally. I've mentored many pilots over the years and I've helped them achieve their flying goals. We can go over your particular goals and your particular situation and help make a plan so that way you can achieve your goals. Next, gliders are just so safe. They fly at lower speeds. They take off slower and they land slower. And therefore, they're just naturally safer. As an example of that, the FAA will let a student pilot solo as young as 14 and get their license at 16. Whereas in airplanes, you have to be at least 16 to solo, and you can't get your license until you're 17 years old. One member of my club, Pete, actually made his kids get their glider license before they were allowed to get their driver's license. He wanted his kids to be more aware of their surroundings, and he thought it would make them more responsible drivers. We all know that we have to study and we have to learn a number of new rules and principles to fly. But for gliders, it's easier, okay? There's 30% less questions that the FAA will test you on. That's 30% less things to learn and study. There's less math, and the math that there is easier. In airplane flying, you'll be asked all kinds of questions about how much fuel do you need to reach a certain place, or how many gallons per hour are you burning? Gliders don't carry fuel. Pure sailplanes just use the air currents to fly around, and when the thermals die down, that means it's time to land back at your home base. So the math is a lot easier, and there's less of it. Finally, speaking of complications, when you have to learn all the different things, you have to learn your aircraft. In gliders, the cockpit and the amount of instruments is just so much more simple. On the left is the cockpit of a typical training glider. You've got airspeed, your altimeter, you've got a meter to tell you how fast you're going up or down, and you've got a radio. The most complicated thing in there might be the red string, your yaw string, to tell you if you're going straight. Whereas on the right is the cockpit of a typical training airplane. There are so many more instruments, and you have to learn how to use each one, how to navigate by all kinds of different techniques, and what to do if each one of those malfunctions, and what the proper procedure is. With gliders, you're just there for the pure enjoyment of flying. You're not worried about flying at night. You're not worried about flying in bad weather. You want to have fun. So there's a lot less complication. It takes less time to do it, and it's just fundamentally simpler, so that way you can be better connected to the sky, and you can spend time flying rather than turning knobs and flipping switches. All of that makes gliders the easiest way to get into flying.